Hello YouTube. I'm back for my number s- number five, the bottom half of my Oscar count. So let's wrap up this bottom count with what was my number five pick, and that is The Imitation Game. The Imitation Game. It tells the story of Alan Turing, the man who's credited for breaking the Nazi Enigma, the code which was considered the unbreakable code for Nazis. It was how Nazis basically got messages from one to another, that even though British intelligence were able to intercept the messages, they could not decode them because no one knew what the code was. And so this movie, I actually would say I actually really love this film. And this was actually, I thought, a pretty great biopic as far as biopics go. Let's start off with the goods with this film. One is, once again, the performances are fantastic in this movie. The film stars Benedict Cumberbatch as Alan Turing, and I heard some people complain that he came off too Sherlocky, because I'm a huge, I love Benedict Cumberbatch, I love Sherlock, I loved him in Star Trek Into Darkness, and some people complain that his performance came off as just he was portraying his Sherlock Holmes performance into this character. And I would say to a certain degree that's true, but I wouldn't say it goes all out, because there's differences. Okay, there's definitely scenes that feel very Sherlock. Like there's a scene when him and his team are when his team asks him if he wants to get lunch, that felt very Sherlock what his answer was when he would. But I will say there's a difference between him and Sherlock, this character Turing's his character Turing and Sherlock, because they're turning Sherlock always seemed some just Joey's kind of emotionless to a certain degree. Turing, yeah, he definitely has more emotions and cares about people much more, and the difference between him and Sherlock is I'll say in Sherlock, he kind of comes off as the person who wants to prove he's always taunt people, saying that he's the smartest man in the room and show them that he is. This came off more as a man who just knew he was right, but it was such an out there answer that nobody knew, that he just had to basically just say, no, you just gotta understand, I'm right. So I know you never heard of this before, but believe me, I'm right. So I will say there's a difference. So I will say that Cumberbatch is great. He's usually great. It's a very great performance. The other major actor in this film is Keira Knightley, and I forget what her character's name is. She plays one of the members of the team who were trying to crack the Enigma. And I'll say this about Knightley. The only thing I really remember Knightley from is the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy, and I really liked her in that because I just really like the trilogy in general. I know a lot of people only really like the first one, and only really like the first one. I think the other two are awful. I really enjoyed all three of them. I admit the second and third are terrible, but like I say, they're guilty pleasure of mine. So I haven't seen Knightley in anything really in a long time, and I will say this: I thought she was fantastic. She definitely held her own against Cumberbatch in this film. Her character, like I said, she was a member of the team that was working on cracking the Enigma, and she did a really great job, because the whole thing was she was a very intelligent woman, but then again she was a woman during this era of time, and because of that she got she basically was got a lot of scrutiny. They for a lot of scrutiny trying to be part of the team, even Cumberbatch, at certain points he basically just had to they had to say that she was just part of the team, because a lot of the women were basically just in charge of just getting the intercepting the codes from Nazis, and then giving it to them. She was basically they said okay, she's part of that team, and then at night Cumberbatch would give her the actual codes as they tried to make this code, figure out how to break the Enigma. So, and all I can say is she did a really great job in this film. She definitely showed just how I thought she did a great job showing the issues of women trying to make it during this time, and show their intelligence. And I will also say, and I forgot to mention this about Cumberbatch. Turing, the character of Alan Turing. Let's just actually go into a new thing right now. Alan Turing. One more interesting thing. One of the things about him him is this man was gay, and that was illegal during Britain at this time of history. And if you were caught being gay, you were prosecuted, which is a very, very horrible thing. And so basically, if you were gay, you had to hide it. And Cumberbatch, you definitely show just the Imitation Game. It doesn't just refer to the idea of him trying to figure out break the enigma, like how to imitate the enigma, but it's also refers to him basically trying to like mimic a straight person, hide the fact that he's a homosexual. And on that grounds, Benedict Cumberbatch once again did a fantastic job, and she showed some of the distress he had to go through, some of like the sadder moments, like how he was sometimes got manipulated by the fact of someone threatening anyone who, because there are characters who figure out he's gay, and they're basically like, you can do what I say, or I'll tell everyone you're gay, and then you're just done, essentially. And so Cumberbatch did a great job on that ground. So, acting, definitely plus. The only major supporting role I can remember is, I think there was, Charles Dance, Tywin Lannister from Game of Thrones. He plays basically like the person in charge of the intelligence agency, and, he basically just channels his Tywin Lannister performance. So if you're a big Game of Thrones fan like I am, you're gonna be really happy to see Charles Dance there during his scene. So, that's a quick thing I wanted to say. Now, let's move on to the plot, because the plot was also incredibly well done, I thought, because the thing about the film is, like I said, this is about World War II and how they're trying to crack the enigma. And the problem with cracking the enigma, the thing that made it so difficult, the reason like people could not break this was considered the unbreakable code, was because the fact was, one, there was so many possible combinations for the enigma, and the other issue was that midnight every night the enigma would reset just like that, and because of that they only had to midnight to do as much work as they can. That after midnight, that's it, they're done. All their work is just out the window, because anything they've done, there's a new code now. They can't use that code anymore, so they can only do so little progress, and that's why it's deemed the unbreakable code. And that was the thing about Alan Turing. He was the man who basically said, like, wait, we can't, humans cannot break this code. There's just too many possibilities for humans to go through. So he was the person who said we need a machine to beat a machine. And that was the whole thing about Turing. He basically was the person who said, let's make a device and that will go through the codes faster than a human being can. But the issue came to the fact that he was making something that no one had ever seen before. And what that issue was, a lot of people are basically like, really, you think this is gonna work? What the hell is that thing anyway? And because of that, so it actually made an interesting conflict. Like, his team wasn't always on board with him, and showed like how like they would consistently get really pissed off at him, just saying like, what are you doing? We're trying to break the code. What is this piece of shit you're making for us? And they did a great job showing that in the plot. The other thing they did a great job, and I heard some people complain about this. I actually really thought this was a good idea. They don't really show the war that much in this film. Like, you only really hear about the war for most of it, or see the aftermath of like an attack or something like that. All right. But I actually thought that was a great idea, because I actually thought it was a great idea. It just showed like what they're trying to essentially stop for the most part. Because like the film did a fantastic job of showing, like, even though these were just like 5 or 6 people in a room, like, it shows just how important they were to the war effort. Like, on that grounds, that was fantastically done. And I will also say, when the other thing is, they also delve into the fact that, like I said, that Turing was a homosexual, and in the end, he did end up getting caught and prosecuted for being gay. And I do give this film a lot of credit, considering the fact this was made by British filmmakers, and they do not try to gloss over this fact. What happened was, he was basically ended up getting hormonal treatment that drove him depression, and then eventually drove him to suicide. This is one of the most shameful moments of Britain's history. They say it's just one of our most shameful moments, considering the fact that because of him, I think analysts had to calculate that he was able to shorten the war span like by 2 years. Like 2 years, he was able to shorten World War II, and that's just the fact that he because of the British government, he was driven to suicide. It's a heartbreaking thing. And I will also say this: the final scene between him and Keira Knightley. I won't say what happens in it, but there's one last. The last scene of the movie is a scene between these two. Both actors just do such a fantastic job playing off each other, and I did think it was one of the most best and most heartbreaking moments of the year. What plot? The only thing I would complain plot-wise with this film is there's this whole odd thing how it keep cutting back and forth between it would cut back and forth between what's supposed to be the past of him like on the team trying to crack the enigma and present day, which is basically like a detective trying trying to arrest him. And I thought the whole thing with the detective was weird and unnecessary. Like I was actually confused at first that there was like that was supposed to be present, that this thing with the detective was present day, and the thing with the enigma was the past. I thought that was really unnecessary. I really thought it could have just been the film could have just been him doing the enigma, time skip, he gets caught and prosecuted, and then. But yeah, I thought that was weird. I will say this though. And I will say this: I have been saying only mainly positive things about this film, but there is a negative with this film, and the negatives with this film are kind of what I said with the theory of everything, but not to that high of it, the high degree that the theory of everything which was on the grounds that it is a manipulative and corny movie sometimes. Cause there's this whole thing, like, to first get, like, new members for the team, which is how Keira Knightley became part of the team, was, the fact that, how they did it according to the movie was they basically sent a crossword puzzle out into the paper, and people who were solved in time were basically told to contact them, and then they would test them to see if they were really that good at solving puzzles, and then if they did, they would be hired. I was like, oh, that's so cool and so bizarre. I mean, that must have happened in real life, right? Because like, why would Hollywood come up with such a weird thing like that? No, according to my knowledge, that was made up, and yeah, that was kind of bummed with that one. There's also some parts of corny dialogue, like, there's this whole scene, like, it's so cliche, like, there's this whole scene, like, when, like, Tywin Lannister just, like, you're done, Turing, get out of here, and then, like, Turing's team comes in and, like, well, then you're gonna have to fire me, too, and I was just like, okay, this never happened, buddy. That was made up. And, but I will say this, actually some more interesting things about this film that you would think would be made up actually weren't made up. Like, there's this whole thing how Turing actually proposed to the person Keira Knightley's supposed to be, and even after Knightley even after he admitted that he was gay to her, she said, I will still marry you," and that's actually a really interesting thing. I'm glad they kept it in, because I actually thought that was one of the more interesting things about the film, that they brought that up. And when it comes to the issue, that's really the only major issue. Like, it can get corny and manipulative at times. This was another issue. This did not annoy me in the slightest. It annoyed some people, but I would not detract from the score at all on this. Like the theory of everything, I heard people complain, like, I wanted to delve, people saying, like, why did they delve into, like, his work? And I was just like, and I'm always like, because you would mean, like, that's not a movie then. That would just be a documentary explaining how it worked, and that would have to be, like, so many hours longer than an average movie, because it's just such a complex thing. Oh, and I also say this, one of the interesting things that they point out in the film, which I'm glad they did, it was the fact that when they finally had the machine, it wasn't as simple as they turned it on and it cracked the enigma for them. It's actually more interesting than that. It actually took them a few more months, because they basically had the device that could solve it, but they didn't figure out yet how to make it work yet, so it would crack it for them. So that was an interesting thing that they brought up. And all in all, though, the theory of everything, I would say, is a great biopic. It has fantastic acting. It has some really great dialogue in a few scenes. It's not, Only negatives, it can get sometimes manipulative and corny, but I would say it never gets as nearly as bad as The Theory of Everything. And I thought the plot could be a bit disjointed. But I will say this: I'm very happy that that this film basically showed who this man Alan Turing was, because most people do not know who Alan Turing is. I didn't know who Alan Turing was before seeing this movie, and what his machine was. This is interesting. What his machine is the precursor to is the precursor to the computers. Yes, he is essentially the father of all computers, and that is the only reason I can make this video right now and post on YouTube. That's the only reason there is a YouTube right now, is because there was a man named Alan Turing who's short in a war, saving millions of lives, and was still prosecuted. So all in all, I can say is The Theory of Everything is a fantastic movie, and definitely go see it. I would give this film a solid 4 out of 5. Thank you.